Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Bexar County Court at Law number 6 in the Bexar County Veterans Treatment Court. I am Judge Wayne Christian, and today is Thursday, the 13th of January, 2022. We have two cases set this morning. The first one is a plea, State of Texas versus Stephen A. Williams, cause number 663252, represented by Mr. Chris Castro. Mr. Castro, are you ready to proceed?
Yes, Judge, but for the purpose of the record, one of the other associates went over the plea paperwork with Mr. Williams. So,
You want to go in a breakout room and do that?
No, our office has gone over it with him. It's just another attorney went over the paperwork with him.
Yeah, my understanding is that Ms. Matos, I guess, was the original attorney, but both you and she are in the same firm, and so you're just kind of standing in for her. Is that what we're doing?
Yes, Judge.
So the plea paperwork will be signed by Ms. Matos, but you can identify her signature. Is that accurate?
Yes, Judge.
All right. So are you ready to proceed under those circumstances?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Thanks. And the second case we have today is state's notice of termination of pretrial intervention in the Bexar County Veterans Treatment Court on Trevin Devontae Pradia, cause number 637217, represented by Mr. Roberto Ambrosino. Mr. Ambrosino, are you ready to proceed on that hearing?
Yes, Your Honor, I'm here. I'm ready.
All right, let me do this plea first to get that out of the way, and then we've got all day long for you guys to handle your case. So we'll do that. Okay, this is going to be cause number 663252, State of Texas versus Stephen A. Williams. Representing the state is Mr. Ross Lewis, and we don't need Susan this morning. And representing Mr. Williams is Mr. Chris Castro, and additionally Ms. Matos, who is not present today, Andrea Matos, and Mr. Chris Castro, but Mr. Castro is physically present today. So, Mr. Williams and Mr. Castro, the first document I'm looking at is entitled Defendant's Consent to Plea by Video Conference. In fact, Mr. Williams, is this your signature on this document, sir? I'm looking for you, Mr. Williams.
He's there, Judge. He's on mute.
Oh, there you are. Sir, your microphone's turned off, Mr. Williams. You got to figure out. There you go.
Yes, sir. That's my signature.
All right, we're good. Thank you, sir. And Mr. Castro, can you identify Ms. Matos' signature as the original attorney record on Mr. Williams' case?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. The next document I have is entitled Defendant's Waiver of Constitutional Rights and Court's Admonitions, that purports to have your signature on the back, effectively waiving certain constitutional rights you must waive in order to enter a plea before this court. In fact, Mr. Williams, is this your signature on this document also, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. By signing this document, are you telling me that you've had enough time to either read this document or have it read to you in its entirety? If you had any questions about what was on this document, those questions were answered to your satisfaction by your attorneys, Ms. Matos and Mr. Castro. So in signing this document, you're telling me that you agree with and understand everything on this document. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Castro, have you and Ms. Matos had enough time to go over this case with Mr. Williams, and in your opinion, is he mentally competent?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, are you a United States citizen, sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And Mr. Castro, has the state fully complied with discovery for you on this case?
Yes, they have, Judge.
And state, you apparently have a motion on this case, do you not?
Yes, Judge. We will be waiving and abandoning the enhancement language and proceeding as a Class B DWI first.
State's motion to waive the greater than 0.15 enhancement is granted. No objection from the defense. Therefore,
No objections, Your Honor.
Mr. Williams, to the charge of driving while intoxicated, first offense. How do you plead, sir?
No contest.
And is there an agreement for Mr. Williams?
Yes, Your Honor, there is. It will be a $700 fine, court costs, 18 months deferred adjudication, 60 hours community service, DWI education, victim impact panel,
1 year.
Smart Start Mobile for half the term, and $60 for the blood draw.
And that goes to Texas Department of Public Safety, I'm assuming?
Yes, Judge.
I got you. And Mr. Castro, is that your understanding of the agreement?
Sorry, Judge. It kind of blurred out a little bit. Was it 12 months deferred adjudication?
This says 18 months deferred adjudication.
We had gotten a subsequent offer at 12 months.
Let me check. That's correct. That's my fault. I apologize. It was amended to 12 months.
Okay, so 1 year deferred adjudication. We all agree?
Yes.
Judge.
All right, great. Okay, other than that, Mr. Castro, is that everything else accurate?
Yes, everything else is accurate, Your Honor.
All right. monitor me and make sure I don't make a mistake. Mr. Williams, in cause 663-252, the court accepts your plea of no contest to the offense of driving while intoxicated, first offense. Although I have enough evidence to find you guilty, I'm going to withhold a finding of guilt, place you on 1 year, deferred adjudication probation. That's a $700 fine plus court costs, 60 hours community service, DWI education, DWI victim impact panel, Community Alliance for Traffic Safety new intervention program, Smart Start mobile home interlock at 4 blows a day for 1/2 the term, which is 6 months. And in order to pay reimbursement to the Texas Department of Public Safety for $60 for a blood test, and recall all pretrial services, bond conditions, and any previous warrants. Anything further from the state or the defense on Mr. Williams?
Yes, Judge. I just asked that Mr. Williams be given credit for any DWI education and victim impact panels.
Sure. If he was proactive in doing DWI education and the victim impact panel, and he can just provide copies of the graduation certificates to his probation officer, and I'll annotate on the record here that he gets credit for that, done proactively, and well done. If I always love it when guys do stuff proactively, because nobody ever does that. Mr. Williams, well done.
Appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Anything further, Ms. Castro?
No, Judge, that's it.
All right, Pat, do we need to do anything about probation? We don't have Susan, I guess, to advise on how the probation works.
Okay, Mr. Costello, Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, you will be notified by email regarding a orientation. It will either be by Zoom or in person. That's up to the probation department. They should be contacting you within 48 hours. If you do not hear from them, you need to call. So I would say, if you haven't heard from them by Tuesday morning, you need to call this number. Now, if Mr. Castro can write down the number, I don't know whether you have a pen and paper, but the number is 210-335-7446. Now, if you do not call, there's a possibility that there will be a warrant for your arrest. So you need to be sure.
Yes, I made sure I called.
Okay, you call them, but wait until then. They should be able to call you between, now and Tuesday. All right, just be sure that you call them on Tuesday if you have not heard on.
Yes, ma'am.
All righty, thank you.
All right, good luck, sir. Thank you, Chris. We'll see you guys soon.
Thank you,
All
Judge.
right.
Okay, next we have cause 637-217, State of Texas versus Trayvon Devontae Pradia. And I've received a document from the state entitled State's Notice of Termination of Pretrial Intervention, which was filed on the 10th day of January 2022 at approximately 1:08 p.m., which states, to the Honorable Judge of said court, now comes Joe D. Gonzalez, Criminal District Attorney of Bexar County, Texas, by and through the undersigned Assistant Criminal District Attorney, and respectfully request the court to set the above entitled and numbered criminal action on the court's docket for the following reason. The defendant has violated the terms of the Veterans Treatment Court program. As a result, the pretrial intervention program and participation in the Veterans Treatment Court have been terminated. Wherefore, premises considered on this 10th day of January 2022, it is requested that the above entitled cause be set on the court's docket. Respectfully submitted, Ross Lewis, Assistant Criminal District Attorney. I have not signed this order yet. That is the purpose of this hearing. Mr. Ambrosino, as representing Mr. Pradia, I have not made a decision on this case yet, whether Mr. Pradia needs to be terminated from the Bexar County Veterans Treatment Court at this time or not. So that's what we're here to hear about. My understanding is witnesses are going to be Ms. Valerie Serna, who is the designated CSCD probation officer in the Veterans Treatment Court for Mr. Pradia. Is that correct, Ms. Serna?
Yes, Judge.
And also Josh Childers, who is the Bexar County Veterans Treatment Court program director. Is that correct, Mr. Childers?
That is correct, sir.
Do we expect testimony from anyone else? Does Mr. Moore need to testify in this case for any reason?
No, Ms. Cameron from the VA is here if required as well.
All right. So at this time, Cho Cameron, Valerie Serna, and Josh Childers, raise your right hand. Do each of you swear that the testimony you're about to give to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
Yes, Judge.
May the record reflect the witnesses have been sworn. The court takes judicial notice of Mr. Pradia's Veterans Treatment Court file in class 637217, which includes a document entitled Defendant's Consent to Plea by Video Conference, plea documents, defendant's waiver of constitutional rights and court's admonition, signed by the defendant and his attorney, dated 4 February 2021, and a contract by and between the defendant and his attorney at that time and the Bexar County Criminal District Attorney's Office. Said contract titled Track 1 Pretrial Intervention, and that is signed by Mr. Pradia and his attorney at the time, who looks like was, I don't know, I can't, oh, there it is. It was you again, Mr. Ambrosino, I apologize. It was you at that time also, great. And Nicholas Maru, who was the Assistant Criminal District Attorney at that time. And my understanding is that there was a plea bargain involved that basically the basic premise of the Veterans Treatment Court, which included Mr. Pradia entering a plea. And normally it's guilty. Sometimes there's no contest. I don't know what it was in this case. Anyway, and the court holds that in abeyance and places the defendant on 1 year Bexar County Veterans Treatment Court Track 1 pretrial intervention probation. The defendant would have been designated to pay $1,000 all-inclusive Veterans Treatment Court fee. Would have been assigned 48 hours of community service, which would have been probated by the court based on his military service. In this particular case, the APSE stress management course, the DOEP marijuana course, a firearm safety course, and Mr. Pradia was to be evaluated and receive Veterans Treatment Court treatment and completion, if any was recommended by the VA VJOs, which in this case is Ms. Cho Cameron. And the weapon was forfeited, it appears, to the state, which is some sort of Glock pistol. Mr. Ambrosino, does that sound like the terms of Mr. Pradia entering into the Veterans Treatment Court back on February 4th, 2021?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. At this time, I guess we'd like to hear from Mr. Pradia's probation officer, Ms. Valerie Serna, who I remind is still under oath, and let us know what good things Mr. Pradia has done in the Veterans Treatment Court and perhaps what bad things he has done that brought us here today. So Ms. Serna, Mr. Lewis, if you want to do a question answer format, or we can just let her do a narrative, it doesn't matter to me, whatever the attorneys would like to do.
A narrative is fine, Judge.
Okay, with you, Mr. Ambrosino? Thank you. Go ahead, Valerie.
Okay, so Mr. Pradia has actually completed his DOPE class, the drug offender education, his anger management, and the gun safety course. He is almost paid up in his fines. He's got $148 balance left towards his VTC fees. The main issues that we've been having are basically UA issues. To date, he's had 7 positive UAs. 7 of them were positive for THC, 1 for alcohol, 3 diluted UAs, and an issue at the lab on January 4th to where he tried to use a sample that was not his for his UA. That's pretty much the basics of the issues that we've been having, constant marijuana use. I will say that he did go a good several months without having any issues at all, to where Ms. Cameron and I decided that we wanted to give him an incentive for, basically digging himself out of his hole and doing so well. But unfortunately, he had another relapse here in January and was not honest and felt that he needed to tamper with his UA in order to get by.
And what was the specific date that Mr. Pradia allegedly attempted to use someone else's urine or some other urine in his urinalysis test?
January 4th.
And just like Mr. Ambrosino, January what now?
January 4th, sir.
Thank you. 2022, correct?
2022, yes, Judge.
Okay, Mr. Ambrosino, go ahead, sir.
Oh, he was off for a minute. I didn't know if he had a problem, but he's
Runner,
back.
he
Oh,
had been
okay.
off and he came back in.
Thanks. Everybody good? Okay. Okay. So, but for the allegation that Mr. Pradia attempted to cheat on a urinalysis test by using somebody else's urine, it appears, he was doing okay in the program at that time. Does that sound right?
Yes, during that time, yes, Judge.
Okay. State, do you have any questions for Ms. Serna?
I don't believe so, Judge.
Mr. Ambrosino, do you have any questions for Ms. Serna?
Just that Mr. Pratty was always very respectful, correct?
Not at the beginning, sir. We did have some issues with a little bit of attitude, and Mr. Childers actually had to intervene and kind of got everything corrected for us.
Okay, but he eventually came around, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay, thank you. Pass on us.
And for the record, I don't know if I mentioned this. Apparently, Mr. Pradia is on pretrial intervention for the crime of unlawfully carrying a handgun. We all agree with that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Serna. Mr. Childers, do you have anything to add at this point? And I remind you, you're still under oath.
Yes, sir. I just want to go back to the beginning. It is uncustomary for us to bring a person in with a UCW charge. The reason that we did is based on Mr. Pradia's self-admittance to having drug issues with marijuana and wanting help, having a 80% disability rating with the VA for PTSD and anxiety. He was, at the time of his admittance into the program, he was about to complete a bachelor's degree in criminal justice with a goal of becoming a high school teacher and football coach. And for us, we went out on a stretch on this charge to allow him to come in the program to work on those issues so he could have a clean record. It is also evident to us that he does have a problem that is habitual. He was discharged from the Army under honorable conditions because of drug abuse. So we know that this is something that goes back into his time in the military. And we've done everything that we can do to help him. We went as far as having a hearing in August of 2021 based on his performance at that time and his non-compliance to give him one more chance. And I personally advocated for him because I do think at the end of the day, Mr. Pratty has a good heart. I think he's a good guy. But I do not believe at this point that he has shown any effort to hold himself accountable for his actions. And I do not believe that he would be successful if allowed to go forward in this program.
And Ms. Cameron, I remind you, you're still under oath as our Veterans Justice Outreach Officer for the Veterans Administration. Can you please advise us what Mr. Pradia's progress consisted of while he was a member of the Veterans Treatment Court?
Yes, sir. When I met with Mr. Pradia on December of 2020, and we did a complete treatment matching assessment and determined that the appropriate forms of treatment for him would be to complete therapy with the VA, substance abuse treatment program with our Via Serena program with the VA, as well as anger management. Mr. Pradia did complete all three components. He completed his therapy on September of 2021. He did have 2 no-shows to his appointments, but he did eventually complete all of them. As far as the substance abuse treatment program, he did not have any no-shows. He did complete all 24 sessions. And anger management, he also completed that in August of 2020.
Okay. Mr. Lewis, is there any other witnesses you would like to call on behalf of the state?
Not at this time, Judge.
Mr. Ambrosino, would you like to have questions for any of the state witnesses, or do you have any witnesses that you would like to call?
Just a question for Mr. Childers. Mr. Childers, you indicated that Mr. Pradia was, I guess, in the process of getting his bachelor's degree, but he actually did complete his bachelor's degree, I guess, in the recent past, correct?
That is my understanding, correct.
Okay, thank you. Just one more question. Did he ever tell you that he was working 2 jobs while, I guess, working on the program?
Yes, we were aware of his employment.
Okay. And so he was working a lot of hours in addition to, I guess, trying to complete the program and finish all the requirements.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Pass on.
I believe that's all that the state intends to present. Is that not correct, Mr. Lewis?
That is correct, Judge.
Okay, Mr. Ambrosino, would you like to present any evidence or testimony?
Not at this time, Your Honor.
Okay, well, basically, the ball falls in my court to rule at this time unless you have anything else you'd like to present.
Yes, Judge. I mean, I think everything that I wanted to say is essentially been pointed out here. Mr. Pradia has a degree. He's been working 2 jobs while on the program. He's basically completed everything except for having positives for marijuana. I mean, he does suffer from PTSD. The fact that he has been working so much and trying to keep up with the additional financial cost has, I guess, created some additional stress for him. And he has indicated that he hasn't been able to see family much over the last year or so while working on the program. And, any punishment that you dole out to him, Your Honor, is going to be significant because there was a felony marijuana case that occurred at the same time that this case happened. That case was dismissed before we came to VTC. But anything you do here today, a deferred, a JSAT, anything, is going to mean that Mr. Pradia can't get that case expunged from his record, which he would have been able to if he would have successfully completed VTC. He understands that. He knows that he had a great opportunity, but he does have a degree. There is a lot of good in him. So any punishment that you dole out today will be significant.
Okay, Mr. Pradia is aware that at this time he is subject to worst case scenario, a year in the Bexar County Jail and a $4,000 fine. Is that correct?
Yes, he does understand that.
Okay. And you do not wish Mr. Pradia to make a statement on his own behalf?
Well, are you going to make the decision about VTC now, or are you going to do everything right
Well,
now?
I want to hear everything from the defense side that you wish to present.
Okay.
And actually, I have one question. Then if you would like to go in a breakout room with Mr. Pradia and chat with him about whether or not you want him to make a statement. But the VTC is all about honor, and it's all about trying to pay back our military veterans for what they did for us. And we really don't get on our coin. We have courage, honor, and justice. Well, the honor part's right here on the table in front of us. The courage part is coming in the first place because Mr. Pradia, of all people, can probably tell you that he probably knew in advance it was going to be very difficult to get away with anything with all the folks that we have and their experience levels and their expertise in what we're doing. But we're very disappointed in Mr. Pradia. If all these things happened as was related, and obviously the only real major incident in his entire program of note is this alleged trying to cheat on a urinalysis test, and I assume to cover up more marijuana use. I don't know what it was. But that's what we're here for, to try to help him stop doing that. And as Mr. Childers pointed out, I think Mr. Pradia is the only person in 12 years we've ever let into the Veterans Treatment Court with exclusively an unlawfully carrying a handgun charge. That's not normally a basis for a VTC situation, but because he had this allied drug problem that kind of went along with it, Mr. Childers went to bat for him and brought him in. So the 2 options I have basically are, well, actually 3 options. I can leave him in the Veterans Treatment Court, which I have to be brutally honest with you and tell is very doubtful at this point if that is if that incident happened. Okay. 2 is I can process Mr. Pradia's plea of guilty to the offense of unlawfully carrying a handgun, and I can sentence him anywhere up to a year in the Bexar County Jail and assess a $4,000 fine, or I can basically kick him out of the Veterans Treatment Court for this incident violation and put him on our regular probation. And he basically starts over again with us on the regular probation, which is still more fun than a year in jail, probably. But the things that Mr. Pradia has done, as Ms. Serna pointed out, he's made progress. If he hadn't tried to cheat on a drug test, we'd be very proud of him, apparently, because he was doing much better toward the end than he did at the beginning. And I guess he spent almost a full year with us. initially. So, I mean, this is one of those where, you think it's far better to be forgiven than to get permission, but that's not really true in this case. So what did Mr. Pradia do in the military? And I don't mind if Mr. Pradia can tell me, or Josh, you can tell me.
He was in the Army, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Pradia, but you were a petroleum specialist. Is that correct?
That's correct. Petroleum supply specialist.
Okay. And Mr. Pradia, did you deploy to Iraq or Afghanistan or any of those colorful places?
No, sir.
Okay. Where were you stationed during your military career?
Fort Bliss, El Paso, Texas.
Okay. And you have VA disability at this time?
Yes, sir.
And 80%, does that include PTSD, or what is the basis of your disability?
That and my shoulder.
Okay. What incidents caused you to have PTSD if you weren't in a combat environment?
Stuff that occurred during basic training, and also while I was at my duty station at Fort Bliss.
Are you telling me they mistreated you and that's what caused your PTSD basis?
In the gas chamber, I had a lot of like problems with my platoon sergeants, and it was just a lot of mental things going on at the time in my life. I had a fiance at the time, and things went south there.
Well, and apparently, and Mr. Ambrosino, I apologize. I'm questioning your client. I don't think I'm going to get into any area that you're going to object to, but feel free to object if I do, okay? At this time, my understanding is you have earned your college degree. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Criminal justice.
In criminal justice. And what do you plan on doing with that?
My original plan, like Mr. Childers said, was to become a teacher and teach a criminal justice topic in a high school, and try to also coach football as well. But of later, I actually gained the interest and wanted to go to law school. So I had bought a bunch of LSAT books and stuff like that to start prepping for that. And because I know I was getting ready to get my second chance from the VTC. But right now, I don't know. So
go get the book, LSAT and Law School for Dummies. That will help you get into law school. That's my favorite book to recommend to people. But whatever happens today is not going to stop you from getting into law school if that's what you'd like to do.
And Your Honor, I also wanted to point out that Mr. Pradia has no criminal history. This was his first case that he ever had. So, I mean, he has a 25 years or so of good behavior. This is really just one.
And Mr. Ambrosino, did you mention earlier that this case started out, or it had an allied case that was like a felony drug case, and that was dismissed?
It was marijuana, Judge. It was 4 ounces of marijuana, but that was dismissed before he went into VTC.
I got you. Are you working at this time, Mr. Pradia? You finished school, I guess.
I finished school back in December 2020. Right now I work at Walmart and Frito-Lay.
Okay. And tell me this, if you would. While you were in the VTC, and technically right now as we speak, you're still in the VTC, do you feel like you were treated fairly?
Throughout the course overall, yes.
All right. Were there ever any incidents that you don't think you were treated fairly?
No, not treated unfairly, no. I know Officer Cerna mentioned that we had problems in the beginning and that like I wasn't respectful. I feel that I was respectful. I just wanted to get my side across, just to make sure that we were on the same page about things.
Okay, Mr. Ambrosino, I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to wait. Don't answer this question, Mr. Pradia, until Mr. Ambrosino hears it and allows you to answer it. But my key concern here, my guess is that we were trying to cover up the fact that we were probably still smoking marijuana and it's not heroin or some really heavy duty drug that we're dealing with. May I ask him that question?
Yeah, you can ask him that question.
All right. Mr. Pradia, were you attempting to cover up continued use of marijuana? Was that the big issue in this situation?
On the latest UA, yes, sir.
All right. That answers my question. That's all the questions I have. Mr. Ambrosino, do you have any questions based on mine? Or any other questions?
No other questions.
All right. Okay, I got it. Anything further, Mr. Ambrosino, before I rule?
Judge, just like I mentioned, there is a lot of good in Mr. Pradia. I just want to reiterate that. I mean, this was obviously a miscue, but he has no history. He has a college degree. He did basically do everything that he was required to do in VTC, except for obviously the marijuana issue. And so that is a lot more than we can say about, some people that would be in this situation. So I hope that you would give him a break here. I mean, obviously he's going to get kicked out. He's not going to be able to get it expunged from his record or that felony. So, I mean, that's going to be following him around for the rest of his life. Basically anything you do here, even a deferred would mean that he wouldn't be able to get it expunged. And we understand that. But I would just ask that you either give him, a deferred adjudication, let him go that route, or, a one-day judgment satisfied based on everything else that he's done here. And then he'll get the conviction, and, that conviction will stand his record.
Mr. Lewis, state recommendation?
Your Honor, I would recommend termination, and I would recommend that he be regular probation. My only comment is just that anyone can sit through classes, but to actually show that these have benefited you, it does not appear that has taken place. While at the same time, I do recognize that Mr. Pradia does not have a violent record or anything of that nature.
And Mr. Childers, as project director for the Veterans Treatment Court, do you have a recommendation on Mr. Pradia's outcome?
Sir, based on the requirements of the VTC versus a UCW charge, personally, I think a JSAT is enough to show that he was not successful in our program. However, he did take the courses that were necessary for a UCW, and the effects of that are going to be with him in his career. And I think that would probably be the best case scenario for him going forward and for us.
Mr. Pradia, in clause 637217, the court grants the state's notice of termination of pretrial intervention. The court accepts your plea of guilty to the offense of unlawfully carrying a handgun rendered on February 4th, 2021 and held in abeyance. I find you guilty of the offense of unlawfully carrying a handgun. I sentence you to 1 year in the Bexar County Jail, probated for 1 year. Assess $1,000 fine plus court costs, 48 hours of community service, probating all that based on your military service. Community Alliance for Traffic Safety Intensive Outpatient Program, weekly UAs, firearm safety course, handgun to be forfeited to the state, which has already been done. Credit for anything you've done, any programs you completed, any monies paid. I'm going to assess you 30 days in the Bexar County Jail as a condition of probation, but I'm going to hold that in abeyance and see how you do. And that's all I got. You're going to be on regular probation. Pat, would you advise him what he needs to do to get contacted by the regular probation people?
Yes. First off, because now he is going into regular, and this is kind of a new probation type of a thing, I will be sending you probation paperwork. It will be the application for probation and a new data sheet. So Mr. Ambrosino, as soon as we're finished here, I will send that to you. And Mr. Pradia, you need to fill that out as soon as possible, because that will be sent to probation as soon as you finish and you complete it. Once they have that, they will contact you within 48 hours. So that way they will set up a orientation, because you're going to have to go through a different kind of orientation. And so they will contact you either by email or by cell phone, whatever. If they do not contact you within 48 hours, and I would say if by Tuesday morning you haven't heard from them, you need to contact them. And I'm going to give you a phone number that you need to use. So if you have paper and pencil, the number is 210-335-7446. And you call them if you haven't heard and tell them that you were granted probation today and you need to set up the orientation. If you do not do that and you have not been contacted, there will be a warrant issued for your arrest. Any questions?
No questions.
All
Thank
right, one final thing. I'm gonna also add gang check to make sure that Mr. Pradia is not a member of some other colorful organization because he's doing things that act like he is. All right, Mr. Pradia, I'm not prone to preach. You don't know me very well. Mr. Ambrosino does. I understand. You don't understand how close you came today to going to jail for a year. This close. So in the future, you're still eligible for early termination of probation. You've already been on probation for 11 months, plus or minus. I'm putting you on probation for a whole nother year. But the ball's in your court for how well you do on probation. Mr. Ambrosino, once he's done everything, and hopefully he's squeaky clean and we have no more marijuana incidents. Oh, that's a good question. If I give you your analysis test right now, Mr. Pradia, are you going to be positive for marijuana?
Am I allowed to answer that, Mr. Ambrosino?
Judge, I mean, here's the issue is marijuana stays in your system for like 30 days.
We're trying to look for some honesty and some honor from Mr. Pradia, which we didn't receive while he was a member of the VTC. Here's what I'm doing. My assumption is that you're going to be hot for marijuana. I'm going to give you a 30-day grace period from today. So on the 31st day, if we give you a UA and you're positive for marijuana, you're going to have a really bad day because I still have a 1-year jail sentence hanging over your head that Mr. Ambrosino can chat with you about.
I understand.
All right. So thank you for your service, but the ball's back in your court. You get to start over. Don't blow it. Mr. Ambrosino, would you like to go in a breakout room with Mr. Pradia and chat with him about all this, or you want to just get with him at some future point?
Sure. No, that's probably.
Put them in a breakout room, please.
Okay, thanks, Judge. Have a good day.
You bet.
Room 1, Mr. Ambrosino, and hold on, Mr. Pradia. Room 1, you should see a blue button to join. You see it? There we go. I'm going to take us off YouTube.